Good afternoon, everyone. I, Shashank, on behalf of NEN and Wadhwani Foundation, would like to invite you all for this webinar and also introduce our expert. Kunal Nandwani is the founder and CEO of uTrade Solutions. He leads uTrade Solutions in product development, business development, company strategy, and human resources. He has gained expertise in a variety of fields such as electronic or multi-asset algorithmic trading, prime brokerage products, exchange dark pools, and high-frequency trading while working for over 5 years at Lehman Brothers and Nomura in London. He has studied Bachelor of Engineering in Computer Science from Punjab Engineering College and MBA from ESSEC, France. Before I hand over the floor to Kunal, here are a few reminders for the audience. You will all be on mute. You may ask a question by typing in the panel provided. Over to you, Kunal.
Hi guys. I hope I'm audible, and if not, then please type into the panel. So as we go along this discussion around founders in a startup, please feel free to tweet at @NEN India during or after the presentation. Share your feedback and please spread the word. So the topic of discussion right now is co-founders in a startup. The questions that come to my mind are, should you have co-founders in a startup, knowing that there are so many fallouts at times, or should you rather go alone and start something up by yourself? I'm hopeful you are all interested in hearing some opinions about this. I will give my subjective opinions from my experience in running the current startup, which I'm doing for over 2.5 years. It's more of a small organization right now, as well as from my experience in seeing and learning things around from other entrepreneurs. So without further delay, I'll just get started. I'll keep the presentation part a bit short, so there is more time for interaction. I want to answer any specific questions you may have in mind and give my humble opinion on that. So let me just quickly get started. First question is, should you have co-founders? Why should you have co-founders in the first place? Are you better off by, let's say, working by yourself? If you are well funded, you have all the skills that are required to run a business, and you have the skills of whichever product service you are trying to create, you may choose to go alone. So for example, let's say if you're opening up a grocery store or just a small business in which you possess all the things that are that are required in order to run that business, create that business, you may choose to go alone, and that's fine. Some people do prefer to retain all the equity in the company, all the ownership, all the responsibility and authority. So those people may also choose to go alone and not work with co-founders. And it's fine. It works for people. It works for people. You cannot argue against it. But there is a reason why most startups do end up having more than one founder. So there are typically a group of co-founders that started. So I'll just get into some of the broad reasons why I feel it's useful to have co-founders. Firstly, in a startup, you need to do a lot of things. So if it's your first startup and you're, whether your family is from, whether you're from business background family or you're from, typical Indian middle class where your parents have been job oriented and you don't have much experience in doing the business. So the various skills, I just mentioned a few. This varies from business to business and startup to startup. Most people, I presume, are focused on technology, internet, or related businesses, but at the same time, it applies to manufacturing and other service-oriented businesses as well. You need to create a team. There is a good amount of skill required in the HR department, which is a tough thing to hire and inspire the team early on. You need to be expert in the product. You need some expertise at leadership level in the product or the service you are trying to create. It may be at the technology level or maybe at the domain level. You need to understand finance very well in order to manage the accounts and various other things. You need investor relations so you can raise funds and keep the company funded. You need sales expertise, which clearly not everybody has. You need to understand the company strategy and how you should try to create value for your customers and whatever you're trying to do. So these are various skills from operational to marketing to HR to product to technology level, where it's rare that one person has all these skills. You know, if you look at the most successful startups in the world, whether it's Facebook, Google, Microsoft, they all had co-founders. So in Apple's case, Steve Jobs was the marketing expert and creative expert, while his co-founders were more on focused on technology. You know, same with Bill Gates for Microsoft and other people. So you tend to see that whilst you may possess some skills and appreciation for all these skills that are required, but you may not be expert at all. And in order to create a successful startup, it's better to have good expertise at the top. So that's one reason why you may choose to have co-founders. Second reason is also it's a very tough journey. You need support in these various skills. So if you're starting a new business, just imagine any of your clients you're targeting, any of the space you're targeting, people are already have an alternate product provider or service provider, and they don't necessarily want to talk to a new person. So you need support in the specialist domain of marketing. You will need support in creating a great product. You will need support from the rest of your co-founding team. So it's useful to have it at top rather than taking all the burden by yourself. Share the support, and you can drag each other up when required. Thirdly, I think it's a very long journey. So I'm going on these images. So there's an image, the bottom image on the left. It shows it's a very long journey. It's just showing that that's what I was trying to present. I'm not sure if it's coming out that way. Entrepreneurship is a long journey. It takes a long time. It's not a few months and you make millions and you get out. It typically takes years and years, and it's more bad days you have than good days. It's it's a tough game, and it's useful to walk on that journey along with someone else rather than just by yourself. It's just tough being alone. Okay. The last image shows 2 + 2 = 5. So if you can create value by bringing in synergies from two people, bringing some skills, and you can create more value in shape of a company or a product or whatever business disruptive model you're trying to do. It's useful to create value by adding two people with complementary skills, and then creating something that is of value in the market for your customers or whatever your business objective is. So these are some of the reasons why you should have co-founders. I hope I'm not going very fast, and I'm just speaking spontaneously through it as I'm going along. So just feel free to note any questions, and you can ask them now on the panel or later. So I'll move on to the next slide. So I think, my personal recommendation is you should not do a business alone. If you're looking to do a startup, better to go with co-founders. You will have to get on with people. It is tough, but in any business you have to get on with people. You will not always have great customers who get on with you easily. So business is not personal. So you gotta take it in a positive, encouraging manner and a constructive manner, and learn to get on with people. And co-founders is a good way of doing it. If they believe in your idea, they are willing to jump on board and give up a lot of opportunity cost they may have in joining your business and work for zero or low salary and help slog as hard as you do. It's useful. It's very useful. It proves that your business has some legs. It has some possibility of succeeding. So the next question comes is, I think, how many co-founders you should have? There is no right number. Should you have just one other co-founder after you? If you are the original visionary or the starting person with the idea, or should you have 5, 10 co-founders? So I don't know if you guys are aware. There's a company called HCL. They had 6 co-founders. There are companies I've seen which have succeeded even with 8 co-founders, and they've done pretty fine. But then more often than not, more people you have, harder it becomes to align the vision and the strategy of a company, and more obviously the equity gets split as well. So in my view, my humble opinion, you should have at least 2 people to help you, at least 2 more co-founders after you, or at least 2 including you and 1 more, and then ideally maybe 3 to 4 is a good number, because the skills and the specialization and the expertise you require across various domains, as I mentioned earlier, product, technology, service, marketing, fundraising, operations, HR are just too many. It's very hard for 1 or 2 people to do it. Probably ideally 3 to 4. That's my view, but it's by no means a rule of thumb. It may work for you with 2 or it may work for you with 5. But I think more than 5 is too much in my view. It's just tough to manage. That's what I've seen with some other people around, and that's my experience. And clearly, everybody should share a good part of the responsibility. You should have broad roles and responsibilities for all co-founders. But at the same time, don't make it very hard and strict. Allow them to evolve over time, because the business requirements would change, market conditions change, and sometimes you may have to have 2 guys at marketing from co-founding group and only 1 running the rest of the company. Or you may have 3 guys running the company but nobody at marketing, because you're creating amazing products and people are just buying themselves. So, you should allow people to evolve in the role, but have the broader set of responsibilities set up front. And over time, obviously, that's one of the things successful entrepreneurs do well, is they adapt to the market conditions and align their resources as per the client requirements or the business requirements. Now the big question comes: where do you find the co-founders? What are the skills you look for? What is it that these guys should have? It's not easy, and many people do mistakes. A lot of fallouts that happen amongst the co-founders, and when you will have more bad days and good days, it's not going to be easy when times are tough, and you will have a lot of tough times. So I think broadly I've categorized them into 4 broad areas where I think you should kind of skills and attributes you can look for in a co-founder. First, image represents that you can rely on them. You fall down, you know they're going to be there to catch you. If you cannot rely or trust your co-founder, seriously, don't do business with them. You won't go too far. That's my learning and experience. Second one on the right, the image shows is trying to present the compatibility. Okay, you should be compatible. You should be able to interact and constructively build on ideas and constructively build the startup and do whatever is required. But if you are not compatible, it may not go too far. Third is the person should be really bright and should stand out of the crowd. People should be able to distinguish themselves with some expertise, whether it's marketing or technology development or product expertise or domain expertise or hiring or whatever. They must be really good at something, and that part you must need in your startup. And I think last is the image at the right and the bottom. It should have the attitude what every entrepreneur and co-founder should have. They're going to get stuff done with whatever it takes. It's easier said than done. You only learn this when you know people or spend time with them that are really willing to go the last mile or anywhere where the business requirements are. But at the end, if they have an attitude of getting stuff done, that's what's required in a co-founder. And if you're able to find these 4 characteristics amongst your co-founders or target co-founders you want to have, it's a great thing. You're really lucky. And so that's one few quick comments on how you may choose your co-founders. Then I think one common problem I've seen people face is who should be the CEO. So assume you start a company or you have an idea, and let's say I'm just taking a random example, let's say you are the expert in marketing. You know that clients want something and you can sell it to the clients. But if the idea is, let's say, and you bring in some co-founders to bring the product and build the technology or service or build the team and all that. But let's say if your company is product focused and the product vision is what drives the company forward, you're less of a marketing company but more of a product-based company. Maybe you are not the right person to be the CEO. You should be very open with that. And if somebody else is the CEO, you must be able to trust that person to lead the company in a right way. So A, decide openly amongst co-founders what are the key things you're trying to do. Take a step back. What is important to make the business succeed? You're going to focus on marketing, product, sales, servicing, fundraising, and various things. Which is the most important thing in your business you believe makes the difference? And that bit, who can drive that in your company? Who can actually lead the company from a strategy and vision perspective? That's the visionary should be of the company, of the amongst the co-founders should become the CEO. And some people do try, and I've heard, and sometimes rarely it works. They do try to say, okay, we're going to be the co-CEOs. There are two people who are the CEOs. I think not in startups, but there's a large global investment bank called Deutsche Bank, which has two CEOs. One is an Indian guy, Anshul. The other person is a German German fellow. I forget his name. Frankly, in startups, co-CEOs do not work. I don't think so. It's rare anybody can make it work. You should have clear vision, clear direction. No investor, no client looks at a company positively when they want to see who's the visionary behind or who's the person driving it. When they see that, oh, there are two CEOs, and it just gets political. So you should be open about this, deciding who's the CEO of the company. Even if you are the own core idea founder, you may not necessarily be the most suited CEO. And the good founders, entrepreneurs always are looking for a better CEO who can run the company better than them. Google co-founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, they did hire earlier, very mature CEO before they took on the responsibility 10 years later. So, being the CEO is you should not really feel any big privilege with that. What comes with it is a huge responsibility. Only do it if you feel you're very prepared for that, and just openly discuss this amongst all your co-founders. Then one other question that comes all the time is, how should the equity be split amongst co-founders? There are a lot of articles I read or I read long ago before I started my venture, where they say it should be equally split amongst everyone, irrespective of who brings what on the table. If there are 4 co-founders, it should be 25% each, or roughly something like that. I personally don't agree with that. I really think, all 5 fingers are not equal. Some co-founders bring more on the table and take more responsibility than others. I think there should be an incentive for everybody to perform and then outperform as well. And based on the responsibility level, they should be given equity based on what they bring on the table. So assume, let me take some examples, okay? Random one, just made a fictional one. So assume you're starting a company like Apple. Person is Steve Jobs, and there's another co-founder he has who's focused on technology. Steve Jobs is focused on creativity and marketing. Maybe they should equally split it, because they both, creation of product is important, but then marketing is also equally important. But I think what the company has all along this been distinct at has been the innovation, the creativity, the user experience. So maybe Steve Jobs is a better guy to lead the company and should have a bit more equity, maybe, right? And one other thing is that, so I think it should be not be equally split. It depends on what you bring on the table. If let's say somebody says I'll join the company and I'll take full salary that I'm getting in another job, and that's it, me joining and doing some work, I should get 50% equity. The other co-founder has quit his job, has put in, let's say, some amount of money, 50 lakh rupees or 1 crore or whatever the amount, and then they both should not be sharing equal equity. The person who's putting in the money along with the rest of the skills he brings on should get more. How do you split it? You gotta just go on the whiteboard and see, or on Excel, and see who's putting how much and what's expected of each other in their roles and all that. Second part is, obviously don't, when you set up your company, I'm mentioning some comments specific for Indian markets. In Indian law, you cannot have shares that vest over time. So shares, if you issue them, let's say you have 100, you decide to do 100,000 shares, and let's say you have 4 co-founders. If, let's say, for the sake of simplicity, you have one person with 50,000 shares, and 2 with 20,000, and 1 with 10,000. Let's say this is the split you have. You should not give them the shares straight away on day 1. You should issue them shares based on the amount of time they spend in the company. What if you give day one shares, 50,000 shares to one co-founder, and day two he leaves, or day two being second month, 6 months later, whatever. The rest of the co-founders will be most likely continuing and running the company and doing all the legwork, all the hard work to make it a success. And then the guy who had earlier got a decent share, whatever the number of shares he had, he takes it all just because he was there for a few months. That does not make sense. It's like just a job. You get salary every month. Same way, you should have an equity structure where everybody gets some shares vested every month, every quarter, every 6 months, or a year. In order to achieve that in India, you gotta do maybe a preference share with a vesting period, or issue 25,000 shares every year, and maybe at the end of the year rather than at the beginning of the year, just in case somebody leaves in between. As a rule of thumb, a startup takes 4 years before it can become a real business. Just a rule of thumb, can be 3, can be 5, but as a rule of thumb, it's 4 years. So try to spread your equity over a period of 4 years and distribute it based on the amount of time and effort people put in by staying in the company. And also, I think one reallocation process should also be there. So if, let's say, first year you say 20, for the sake of argument, you have 50% with one, 20 with another two, and 10% with the third for the fourth co-founder. You should allow everybody to review performance of every single co-founder, and based on the review, the equity stake may go up or down depending upon how they have performed at their jobs. Plus, there should be a bonus incentive for outperforming any targets that they had originally at the beginning of the year. So this allows for a flexible, ongoing process in which, if there is anything which is set earlier before starting the company, and if that changes over a period of time, people are compensated equity fairly and transparently and appropriately. So the last image was only showing it may go up or down, so you should have a reallocation process. These are some of the things I had in mind around the co-founder structure, how co-founder should be in a startup, how you should find them, how you should consider splitting the equity with them. I think I've finished well in time, probably 20-25 minutes. I'm open to questions now. And just last thing, there's another presentation by Vivek Agarwal on 18th September on innovations and improvements in education sector. So if you're interested for that webinar, please connect with the NEN group and do join us for that webinar. Right now, I'm open for questions.
We'll begin with the question answer round. The first question for you, Kunal, is from Prasad.
Yeah.
He says that he's presently working as a software engineer, but his area of interest is also real estate development. So, in case of real estate, how to look for the correct co-founder? Can you suggest him some methods, as he's still a novice in that field?
Sure. Look, I can give you my 2 cents on that. Actually, 1 cent, because dollar has become very expensive. That was a joke. So, I think as a software engineer, you have hopefully and more likely than not a very technical mind, analytical mindset. And though real estate sector is probably less open to innovation or technology-driven automation in India, so I think your idea is going to be more an offline idea where you buy, sell, build properties and all that. So I think maybe the kind of co-founders you should look for are ones either who are good, who have done transactions of buying, selling real estate over a period of time. But then there are probably millions of people in India who do that. Everybody is a real estate agent, and in the last decade they've made so much money on that. They may be more arrogant than actually open to a new idea of doing something in that space. So, but somebody with a real estate experience you need. So whether it's a person who's been involved in the official approvals or creation of real estate projects, that's a good skill. An architect could be an interesting co-founder for you, with some experience of building property and knowing how much it costs. Real estate broker could be interesting for you, but just be careful because some of them may not. Generally, those people, and not disrespect to anybody, are not very bright people as such. They had actually been very lucky in the last decade that they made money that they made, but you need to see what differentiates you from other real estate startups or projects and all that. So based on whatever your distinction is, maybe you are doing some collaborative real estate sale process, or maybe you are doing this, creating some new better greenhouse focused societies or something. So accordingly, bring in an architect who might be well educated and more professional and all that. But same time, you need to know the people who know the tricks of the game. So how the official files and work and approvals are done by the state authorities and all that. So maybe you should look for one architect and one real estate broker who can either come in as a co-founder, but same time they may just be a consultant advising you on the side and helping you, because in India people are always ready to help, and you may have some uncle or a cousin who can find you the right thing. I hope I answered.
We have an entrepreneur, Paras, asking you this next question. He has co-founded 99holidays.com, and now he is looking for a technical co-founder. What do you think should be the selection process to identify who's the right one qualified for this position?
Right. I think, I apologize, I am not very well aware of this startup that you mentioned. But I think probably what you're looking for is somebody who can bring in good technical skills in creating a platform which is easier to access, available across devices of tablets, mobiles, web, anywhere, with some amazing user experience, which might be, I don't know, there was some startup I heard of which was doing it on a map. So on a map they just show which areas are available for what price, and so maybe you need somebody who has a web software project development experience, but not just front end but back end as well. So you need somebody who can do the front end. Maybe I'm just taking a step forward here. Maybe somebody who can do a web front end in HTML5, JavaScript thing, do the back end in some web server language in Python and all. But at the same time, be open to understanding about new businesses, because it's whoever you bring in might have worked for some other software company here and there. Don't take a fresher. I think it will more likely than not, it would be hard for you to get much out of him in the near amount of in the short period of time. But taking somebody who's very good at technology and understands that a new business, how you expand it, how you challenge it, how you create a good platform which is accessible to multiple people on different devices, and which is the latest generation process of doing it and managing all the databases, and the user experience, I think, is a key thing you can and you should look for. Somebody who's worked quite a lot on that, front to back development as well as some architect level. So designing the product architecture, that would be a good co-founder for you. And to find them, just look around, go to startup conferences and connect to people on LinkedIn, find engineers around, and I'm sure you can work your network and find somebody relevant. Just ask around.
Ritesh is coming up with the next question for you. During your presentation, you said that you can adjust the shares as per the performance, and every year you can change it based on the time put in by each of the co-founders. But then, who decides these changes? Is it you who initiates the idea and the whole process? Can you please throw some light on how to formulate these things?
Sure. So I think, let's say you have 3 co-founders, and one becomes a CEO. As I mentioned, openly discuss who should be the CEO and decide that. And then all of you sit together and evaluate each other constructively, whether you were supposed to do marketing and sales of, let's say, 1 crore. Did you do 1 crore? No. Did you put in the efforts to get there? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe market conditions were tough and you could not deliver. But then, if you can't deliver, the company shuts down. So if, let's say, the other person was supposed to deliver a product which it did not, you could not develop for whatever reason, there's no excuse for that. You're meant to get things done whatever it takes. So I think 3 of you should rate each other, build a rating process. What we do is, in my company, we have 4 co-founders. The other 3 people rate me. I'm the CEO, and the three of them rate me. That did I do my job at marketing? Did I achieve my targets? We set our goals and targets, and if we achieve, it's good. If we outperform, we get some bonus shares. If we don't, and if we really slack in our performance, our number of shares allocated for the previous year are reduced, or the next year are reduced. So all of you rate it, and then do the weighted average of that, weighted sum across all the three people rating each other. So it should be done openly. It's better. That's what we use, and it seems to work. I'm sure there are more ways of doing it, but that's how we are currently doing it.
Kapil wishes to start a financial data vending service for the Indian financial market. His company name is True Data India, which will include analytics, charting, etc. He has tried collaborating with some foreign companies, but has still not been unable to find a dedicated co-founder. He wants to know what next can he do. Is it okay to start his venture and then add co-founders, or should he wait till he meets the right co-founder?
Good question. Firstly, it's my domain only, the startup you're looking in for. So certainly reach out to me afterwards, and I'll try to help you and guide you. Secondly, I think if you really believe the market needs something and you want to create it and you are willing to fail even if you fail, just jump by yourself, just get started. Because once you're on the ground, you will be more driven to get things done, and other people will be more excited to join you knowing that you've put everything into that startup or into that idea. Put things in perspective, before I started my company, it was 2.5 years ago, along with 4 co-founders. I had left my job a year before that. I was already spending a year looking for the right idea, right business model. And this one, I spent good 6 months in just streamlining this idea, raising some funds and talking to lots and lots of people, getting their feedback, defining the business plan and all that. So I was alone, and it's tough. It's not easy. But, as an entrepreneur, if it were easy, everybody would do it. So there's a reason why 99% people just think about it and leave it. If you're really passionate about it and you want to make a difference and you're willing to fail, even if you fail, it's okay. You would have learned a lot. Go and start yourself. You will find the co-founders if you need. And depending on the skills you have, you can already get started and do something. It's a tough market. Nobody pays for, in my experience, not many people pay for information or analytics or charting. But if you create something good, there are buyers out there who could collaborate with you or buy you out or do something with it. So we do something similar as well. So reach out to me afterwards, and I can give you my 2 cents on how you may be able to do it or not. But if I were you, I would just jump and get started, because I was very passionate about what I did, and I did start myself and co-founders came later.
Ronak Patel has just finished his education and he is interested in starting a new venture. He still has a few ideas but not sure which one to go with. Suppose he does find the right idea to begin and has to search for a co-founder. Which do you think is a better option? Getting an experienced person as a co-founder, or a co-worker who he knows is also a fresher?
Right. Very, very good question, and actually a tough one because it's hypothetical. I'll give you my opinion on that. So firstly, when you hire, whether it's a co-founder or it's a team member for your company and all that, never be afraid of hiring smarter people than you. You should be very open and willing to hire smarter people than you. Actually, as a rule of thumb, if you don't feel the person can do something which you cannot, you should not be bringing the person. The person must bring some complementary and some smart skill which you don't have. That's the only way you add value. And this applies even more so for a co-founder. So you are a fresher, you have an idea of your fresh mind, fresh perspective around certain things, whatever you want to do. First, I would say formalize the idea you really believe in and you want to do. Secondly, maybe bringing in an experienced person is not a bad thing, but just make sure you get on with the person and you can constructively work together. As long as you do, even if that person takes more equity or the CEO position, you should be less bothered. What you should worry about really is creating value, creating something that's real, creating a business, sustainable business, or some value for customers, or a new product, or a disruptive idea, or whatever you're trying to do. Focus on that, everything else follows. So if I were you, I would consider a batchmate, whoever you mentioned, but if he doesn't bring anything complementary and is exactly going to do the same thing that you can, you believe you have the same skills as he does, maybe go with an experienced person. But you got to consider them all, speak to all of them, because they may also not be willing to do it with you in the first place. So you can't make your bets until you know what your choices are. And talk to them, talk to both of them. I would be open to bringing them both, but maybe more inclined towards bringing the experience, because if you don't have it, it's useful to have somebody with that experience. To give an example, I was more of a trader and a product-focused person doing algorithmic trading. My co-founders, one is focused on investment, one was from investment banking background, so I had all the relations with the investors and could help us raise funds and get started, and also do marketing and sales along with me. So it was an expert person. It was an expert position, and I found the right co-founder for that, who used to be a friend of mine. The other two people were more focused on technology. They were amazing software developers, and I needed somebody to actually create the technology as well. So I brought in those people who were having the complementary skills, which I only had the appreciation for, but I could not do everything. So, if I were you, I would go for the experienced person if everything else being equal. But do consider your colleague as well.
Neeraj Madan is in the process of launching a startup. He wants to know when is the right time to get into an agreement with the technical co-founder. For example, the company is an online portal-based company, and there is a need of a technical partner, say web or app developer. When do you think is the right time to get into an agreement with them? The second part of the same question is, he wants to know whether the best way to hire a co-founder is to bring them in first, then see the performance and contribution and see if they're able to share your vision and then decide, or to go the other way around. Please share your thoughts on this.
Again, very specific examples and very tough ones. There's no generic answer to these. I'll give you some inputs into these. So, to answer the first one, I think sooner you have the agreement, better it is. Maybe day one you can agree on broad terms that both of you would start together, you would share X amount of equity to begin with, and over time you would figure out who gets more or less. Maybe you agree on who's putting in how much money and what's expected in terms of roles. You can put it all on a stamp paper and just sign and get started. Maybe it's a one-page agreement. Over time you would need to bring a proper full legal foolproof agreement, which may be 10 to 20 pages, and you may need lawyers for that. But sooner you get it on agreement, better it is. Verbal agreements actually tend to somewhere get disappeared, and unless the other person is very trustworthy, very close friend of yours, it's tough to just count on people. They change their priorities and thought processes and change, and you just don't know what they're driven by. So it's better to put it as much in writing sooner rather than later, and having the clause for them to leave if they want to, by giving back the equity, if that's what you're giving up front, or they may have to be asked to leave if they don't perform, and set some measures for that. They need to create a platform in 6 months, 1 year, prototype, whatever, something concrete, and they may choose to leave for personal family reasons as well. And try and put everything on legal paper, even if you know the person, because it only helps. Later, there are always troubles which come in. Many times there are troubles which come amongst co-founders. More you have written down, better it is to deal with such situations later on. Secondly, I think it's better to know the person before you start with the person, because working with the person, do one thing, ask them to spend a week with you, work on something, work from your home office or somewhere, and spend more time, go out for dinner, movie, or I'm not saying date your co-founder, but spend time with them and understand what they do, what they want to do, how good they are at technology, question them, challenge them, bring in the experts who may question them, interview them for you, and you judge on the personal basis whether you get on with them. So it's better to know as much as you can up front, but eventually you only know once they start. The real color of a person only comes after they start. People put on a different poker face when they're trying to get a co-founder position or a job or anything, but it's only after a few months and weeks of delivery that you find out if they can really deliver or not. So, spend as much time analyzing that upfront as you can. Bring them in, have the right legal set of agreement which is fair to you and fair to them. And if they perform, they continue and they get more and more share. If they don't, then they just walk out. They have to go. So have the appropriate agreements, have to bring in the right level of lawyers in order to help you in the process. That's what I would say.
Ritesh wants to draw from your personal experience. You said that you started with your own idea and later on found your co-founders. So in your particular case, do you keep higher equity or split equally among all of them? And how did you decide this share splitting? Don't you think ideally every new co-founder would look for equal share? Otherwise, wouldn't it be difficult to convince them? So he wants to know how you did it in your case.
Okay. I will tell you whatever I can right now. So firstly, our split is not even. It's different. It's based on performance. It's reallocating every year. There's bonus based on the achieved targets or outperformed targets and all that. So that's a second year onwards thing, right? How do you decide on day one? So we sat down and we said, look, we are doing a software product company. What do we need? We need somebody with the domain expertise. Who has it? Maybe that's worth 10% of the total equity. We need technology expertise. Who has it? Okay, let's say it's worth 30% and it's amongst 2-3 people. And then how much they contribute. Then we need marketing expertise. Who would market? Who can sell this thing? Then we need hiring team, leadership, active. So we split up all the roles into a percentage, 10%, 20%, 30%, and adding 200. And then we said, let's put the 4 co-founders and see how much they're going to contribute for each. And then we took the weighted average and came out with the numbers. Some of us invested as well upfront, so they put in X amount of dollars or lakhs of rupees. So whoever puts in the money should get more equity because he's putting in his own money on day one in the idea, so he's taking a bigger risk. So should it be equal for all co-founders? I don't think so. But if they're all contributing the same, let's say they're all the same background, same experience, similar experience, maybe they should. But then in time, obviously, somebody takes more ownership than the others, as you would find out in any co-founding startups, and they will appropriately be compensated. So you should start somewhere, wherever it makes sense, split across roles based on the targets you take, and then in time allow for reallocation and have it as a fair and open, transparent process. So in our case, it was not even. It was based on the roles and the expertise and the all that, and the responsibility people took. And second year we changed it quite a lot. Third year we changed it again. So we keep changing it, and everybody's been open and okay with that. But the good part is we all knew each other before we started. They were all my friends, and they didn't know each other necessarily, but they all knew me very well. I was a central person, and I was confident that they are fair people. They're not necessarily the people whom you may doubt that they would cheat on you or anything. So that's one thing I really draw pride in. We trust each other a lot, and we have been fair. Somebody has done well, they've gotten the appreciation and more equity, meaning dilution for the others. Somebody has not done well, they've accepted. They've admitted, look, I could not perform for X reason, and I've not delivered, so I should not get the equity in this quarter or this month or whatever. So it can be the same. I have no issues with that if everybody brings same things on the table. But as you imagine, right, one person does all the legwork, the other person just says, okay, I'm a co-founder, because the other person may fall sick and he may need somebody he trusts, and I'll be there and do something. That's it. Otherwise, I don't deliver anything, or I don't lead any bigger challenge across the company challenges. So I should get the 50%. Doesn't make sense to me. So it really varies from case to case. I feel strongly it should be decided upfront based on the role you take and the responsibility you have and the targets you deliver. But in some cases it may well be equal, and every co-founder should be happy with what they get, because at the end of the day you should think more about what is the 100% leading to, what is the overall company doing. If you can all create value and some contribute more to it, the others do less, they still get 10% or 50% of something, and it's always 100% of zero is a zero, right? So you must be first focused on creating something. Zero should not be zero. You should be creating some value, which is worth few crores to whatever amount you may target, and then split evenly or appropriately as per everybody's contribution. That's what I'd say.
The next one is from Chetan Kulkarni. He is part of a startup which is involved in web development, and he's looking for someone who can do design of simple websites. He can go for an employee, but is more keen on a co-founder as a long-term plan. So he wants to know, how does he make them realize the importance of being a co-founder rather than a salaried employee?
Right. I think it's an education process. You're gonna see more examples how to hire people, hire co-founders, tell them the responsibility they get, the kick they get in doing a startup and taking a big responsibility, bigger role than in their current job of being an architect working with someone else versus working for themselves, getting more equity, more recognition, more responsibility, more visibility, more authority. It's a selling part. You must be, if you are a co-founder in a startup, you must have good skills to charm and attract people around. So, that's something you can maybe, there's a lot of write-ups on this online you can find. You just tell them the stories, explain them how they will be benefited by having a bigger role, bigger responsibility, more challenge than their current jobs, getting the equity in the upside of the company. If the company grows, they can make more money eventually, though early on they may be at zero salary or a low salary. And the exposure they get and the startup experience they get. These are the selling points I use for co-founders as well as for hiring the team members we have.
This question is from Sibasis Misra. He has a 4-year-old company and is looking for a co-founder in technology. A guy whose domain is in technology, that is. Has there been instances where a co-founder is taken in after 4 years of inception to start a new line or vertical in the company?
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know of any such instance as such, but yes, it happens. Now, would it be a co-founder? Technically, no. Depends. Titles matter. Giving a co-founder is really adding a lot of value to the product work vertical you are doing, but it could be in the management of the company. You may have 1 or 2 co-founders and 3 people in the management and the part of the management. So technically, after a year, you cannot have a co-founder because they didn't find the company as such. They didn't start the company. But if you want to give them the title to keep them happy, I wouldn't worry too much about it. In our company also, we considered after 2 years starting a vertical and bringing in somebody very senior, and we did, and we gave them the management position. Co-founder didn't make sense because they were not there 2 years ago when we started it, unless obviously you start a new venture altogether or a different setup. So it's a subjective thing. Co-founder title, if they want it and you're okay to give it, please go ahead. Otherwise, technically, they should be part of the management or head of business or head of some vertical. Give them the right title, director, VP, whatever titles you have around, and keep them happy. Give them the right responsibility and all that. So, co-founder technically doesn't make sense, but if they want it and you are okay to give it, there's no harm. You have nothing to lose.
We'll be taking our last 2 questions for the day. The penultimate one is from Dawood Hashmat. He asks you, what, according to you, generally is the appropriate profit sharing ratio between co-founders when one of them is funding the startup and helping it in the setup, while the other one is in charge of doing the rest of the work?
Look, funding is a very important part. Funding is like blood in a person's body. If you don't have the blood circulating, if you don't have the funding, funding should get maybe 25 to 50% of weightage in any startup. The other 2 things, but again, it's only for year 1. Year 2, technically, you should be getting some cash flow from revenues of product or service you're doing. So I think it's hard to say really what your business model is and how long you think things would be, so if a person gets it funded for first year, gets you started, first year if it takes 50%, you should be willing to do it if it gets you all the funding you need. But if second year is not adding value, you should get zero equity. But if it's doing some role, you should get some equity. It should be a subjective thing, changing every year. In the first year, if you have to give out 50% of the first year equity, so if you have 100,000 shares, you can give him 12,500 shares of the first year's 25,000 shares for bringing in all the money, and then you work hard and deliver something. The second year, you see how your roles evolve. But same time, obviously, during the year, if he's bringing in easy funding and then he's not adding value, it could be a liability as well. So make sure they help you in some sense. So I think funding is very important early on. I would give anything for that. Because without that, maybe you just can't get started. It's very important.
The last question is coming up from Mr. Maruti Sriram. He has a training company for corporates specialized in entrepreneurship development for middle and senior management. His startup is now looking for a co-founder, somebody who can talk and give a talk on corporate entrepreneurship. Can you give him any specific inputs for his specific request?
If I understand correctly, you're looking for a co-founder who can give these talks.
Yes.
So I think, look, take me as an example. I have a perspective, I have my own experience, and I have a very broad idea of how things are. But maybe you are better off by not having an expert co-founder who can talk about this in a certain way. Maybe what you need and want is somebody who can bring in, who can give his inputs, learn these things from entrepreneurs, and obviously repeat them when required in corporate trainings, but then actually bring in more varied group of people who have been entrepreneurs successfully, or obviously most would have failed, but bring them in to present their case and draw learnings from that and create the material that you can share with such clients of yours. So creating the material, bringing in the content and the people, that's probably a skill maybe you can look for. Having in one co-founder or one senior person who helps you deliver the same speech every time might be boring after a while, because these corporates, obviously, you want recurring revenues from them. You want them to come back to you after initial sessions and do more sessions on different parts of entrepreneurship or whatever disruptive innovation you want to talk about. So maybe have somebody who's smart to give talks, but as well as absorb from other entrepreneurs and bring other entrepreneurs into your business. That may be a business idea for you to actually look into bringing in more people, like whoever comes on NEN. I'm sure people are mostly helpful and willing to give their time and not charge for it and let you set up and grow your startup. So I'm not sure if one person who comes in with the same perspective repeats across the whole corporate world would be a great co-founder, unless he can learn from others and create good content and material which could be repeated in front of these corporate clients of yours. So that's my 2 cents on this.
Thank you very much, Kunal, for that interesting session. Thank you to all our attendees for participating in the webinar. We are glad that the questions kept coming in, but due to a lack of time, we are unable to answer them all. Please do send in your feedback and suggestions to us at eclub@nenglobal.org. Also, if you found the session interesting, feel free to blog or post about it. The recorded version of the webinar will be available at www.youtube.com/user/eclubnen online by tomorrow. Also, do join us for our next webinar on innovations and improvements in the education sector by Mr. Vivek Agarwal, CEO of Liquid, on 18th of September at 3 p.m. Thank you once again and have a nice evening.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.